Thank you for joining us today on The Best of the Best, brought to you by Biles Wilson, a boutique litigation firm based in the Dallas area. I'm Dunham Biles.
I'm Jeremy Wilson.
And we're lucky today to be joined by our good friend, Bob Lovell, who is going to eventually tell us a unbelievable story that is perhaps the most inspiring story I know from somebody that I actually personally have the pleasure of knowing. And so welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you for asking me to be here. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
As are we.
Why don't we just start a little bit, Bob, about telling us about HMS and how you founded it and what it does and how it helps people.
HMS was founded almost 30 years ago. I moved here to Texas from Florida and wanted to relocate, and I did not have a good experience with finding the right realtor, the right builder. My realtor kept wanting to show me used houses. That was her listing. And of course they teach in real estate school, get your own listing and you get paid twice, it's doubled. So I was looking more for something new. And I did finally find a new builder on my own, which again, you just have to be so careful. You order level 5 carpeting, you find out when it's too late, 6 months after you've moved in, that it's level 2, and you can tell from the, wear in the path. So it just was not a good experience. And shortly after, you can only hunt, golf, fish so much, and I decided to set up HMS to start educating people on the right way to go about getting into a home. And it was kind of started just from the frustration of there's an easier way to try to get a home without getting taken advantage of by your builder, your realtor, your mortgage company. It's kind of a team deal. So we put a program together that handled all of those things, and one stop to go to. You tell your story one time instead of 3 times to your banker and your mortgage and your realtor and so on.
So, Bob, I think it's fair to say, right, that your HMS helps most often first-time home buyers or people that have perhaps difficulty with credit scores or other things find brand new homes from new builders, and it finds ways to get them in when they thought it wasn't even possible. Is that right?
When we first started the company, Dunham, I wanted to target to the people that I figured really could use the help. And that pretty much to me seemed to be renters. Renters are renting not because they love the ambiance of the parking lot or all the strangers moving in to offer their kids friendship, and candy with lots of changes that come on. They were there because they didn't think they could own. They didn't think that they had a chance, maybe because of credit or income, or they were just afraid to get started. So I started targeting to the renters, and doing that, we actually started in the very beginning by calling people that were renting. You get out a big old street directory, and when you see 600 addresses with the same address and the apartment numbers, I hired probably 6 of the ugliest people you've ever seen to be my telemarketers. But on the phone, they sounded great. They were beautiful. And so we would call people up that were renting and ask them if that's truly their preference. And if not, they'd really rather own. We offered them a free evaluation to come in, no pressure, and find out where they stand on qualifying for a home.
So what's the greatest misconception that renters have today that prevents them from deciding to buy and that you help them overcome?
Wow, that's a tough one because there just are so many. One of them that I hear a lot, people think that you need to have 20% down or more to buy a house. In reality, that's for most people going to be more like 3%, 3.5% down. The other is they think their credit is not good enough because they don't have credit or something like that. So credit, down payment, and probably income. When I first started doing this, prices of homes were a lot less. Interest rates were still pretty high, but the homes were a lot less. And it was amazing that you could get a 3-bedroom, 2,000 square foot in Plano that was really nice for about $130,000. And those days are gone. Some of the smart clients I had back then, they would actually come back and buy a second home in the second year, and another one. I had one lady that actually owns 10 homes. Today, she still only makes about $45,000 a year, and the rules have changed a little bit now from what it was then. If you had great credit, you could do a lot of things. So she owns 10 homes, and they're all filled up with renters. And even though she still makes about $45,000 a year, she is worth around $4 million.
Wow, it's quite the story.
And we like the kind of stories that end up well for people, especially that need it. Where it started out purely with renters, and I have to say, probably 90% of everyone that we still do business with, they're renting, but they've been renting for maybe 15 or 20, 25 years. They're paying $2,000, $2,500 a month. And again, it amazes me still, after doing this so long, that someone can rent for 20 years and justify that, well, I probably won't qualify, or I don't think I make enough money, but they're paying $2,500 or $3,000 in rent. You know, so education. That's really what it boils down to with HMS. Education, education, education. Some people say location, location, location. Not as much as education.
So who is there's a person sitting out here there that, should most be calling HMS today?
I don't think having a home is for everyone. It really isn't. Some people are not ready. The oldest renter that we put into a home was 88 years old, and he had rented his entire life. He had never owned a home. He was a World War II vet. After renting his whole life and then switching to home ownership, and that meant so much to him. One of the more recent ones that I've done was a 21-year-old kid, and that 21-year-old kid, sharp as a tack. His dad heard one of our commercials on the radio and told him, you need to call these people. And he said, I will. He said, no, I mean, you need to call them, and handed him his phone. Both of them came in the next day. The kid, he had been working 2 years at the sheriff's department, smart, saving his money, had great credit, and his mother tried to talk him out of it, 21-year-old baby,
Sure.
But Dad won on that, I think. The boy needs to get out. So, but there is no one particular group. But I would say, if I were to narrow it down more, anyone who is currently renting for whatever their reason, but down deep, they would still really prefer to own their own home. Mm-hmm. That's the person that needs to call. They're not going to get, into, it's like these, what do you call them, those vacation places and that where they...
Timeshares?
Yeah, timeshares, where they pressure you. When people come in, we explain to them right up, the whole purpose of this visit is education. Find out where you stand. Mm-hmm. Because people, if they've not ever bought a home, they really don't know. So we're going to tell them either, yes, you qualify, here's how much, or we're going to tell them, no, you do not qualify, and we'll tell them why. And then most importantly, we also explain to them what they need to do to fix it, whether it's credit issues or down payment issues, education.
Excellent. Well, Bob, if you don't mind, let's back this story up. Let's go back to Bob Lovell, the 11-year-old, because this is a story that when you first told me, I was shocked and amazed that somebody could have the difficulty that you faced at 11 and turn it around at 11 and make such a difference. So, can you just give us the brief version of what happened?
Well, people that hear that story today, sometimes they think of it as being difficult for me. Mm-hmm. And in reality, it really wasn't as difficult for me. I had a lot of freedom at that time, which for an 11-year-old was pretty good. But my dad, he had an accident when I was 11, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. My dad was a janitor, and he was helping putting in a air conditioning unit at a downtown hotel. And the scaffolding broke. He fell and broke his back and was paralyzed from then. About 3 or 4 months later, my mother, who is a diabetic, had her feet amputated. So they were both in the hospital at the same time for a bit. He was in for 3.5 years, and she was in for 6 months. I didn't want my brother and sister to get separated, so we kept it from the school. They never knew. I got to be very good at signing my mother's name on the report cards for my brother and sister. And I knew that the $45 a week that was coming in at workman's comp wasn't going to pay the rest of the bills. And my dad used to make $72 a week. And so I needed a job to make up the difference. And I found a job. It said students. It was advertised in the paper, students part-time. I'm a student part-time. So I applied. But it was, they meant college students. And but I did the interview, and the guy had fun with me. And, he thought it was a joke. So I was there for a job and needed it pretty bad. After our interview, I remember he whipped out a wad of $100 bills and kept flipping through them until he got down to a 20. And then he slid that 20 to me and told me to get the heck out in tougher terms. And I said, does that mean I have the job or don't have the job? He said, get out.
Yeah.
So I left. I didn't start crying until I got to the elevator, but when I did, because I was mad, I needed the job. And I pretty much ended the chance of getting that job because I took his 20 and I tore it up into a bunch of people, threw it in his face, and left. His receptionist ran downstairs the one flight, met me at the elevator. Yeah, I was too lazy to walk. I took the elevator, held Lemon, chubby, little pimply-faced kid. Matter of fact, that was my nickname where I worked there for the next 7 years.
Yeah.
So she came down and said, he really does want to hire you. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. He's a real, And she said, well, he is that, but he really does want to hire you. Come on. She put her arm around me, and I thought, that was nice. I was 11. She was pretty. And I went back up, and I heard every word she said to him. And she tore him up one side and down the other. The kid needs a job, and his parents are in the hospital, and you do this to him. And, she just beat him up. And she came out smiling a few minutes later, and I could hear everything she said. So she said, he's ready to see you now. And I had a smirk on my face when I went in. I said, I knew who ran that shop. And it turned out to be his wife, Glennis. And But I ended up working for the guy for the next 7 years, roughly, well, 6.5, until I turned 17. I enlisted in the military at 17, back in '68.
You had quite a bit of success at that job, though, didn't you? In terms of making money and providing it for your family, like during that time?
I did. My goal was to make enough to cover the rent. We were pretty much in a ghetto area. I mean, it's not pretty much, it was a ghetto area. It was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And rough school and all that. But the guy explained it to me real easy. It's $1.25 an hour for the job, and you work 4 hours a night. Or you can get $4 for every order of the magazines that you sold. The catch was you had to sell at least 4 orders a night to keep your job. So I had pretty good math skills at $1.25, 4 hours, $5.
Yeah.
4 orders a night at $4, that's $16.
Yep.
So I ran door to door, and I tried to give my best little presentation, and I always sold my 4 orders. And literally before that year was out, I was making a lot more than my father was making as a janitor at his $72 a week. And it was a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
It truly was. Gary, the guy I worked for, was an interesting man, and we kept in touch literally from the time I was 11 until just a couple, 3 years ago when he passed away.
What can you tell us about when you found out that you had not been being paid the same as people a little bit your senior?
The college kids.
Yeah.
One of the college kids, Big Roy. Big Roy was 19, and at the time when I was 16, and I'd been working for Gary for all these years. At that point, about 5 years, and Big Roy got me aside one day and said, "Look, if I show you how to quadruple your money without doing anything different, would you share it with me?"
Yeah.
Magazine business, I guess that's kind of like the car business. Sure, Roy. Big Roy got drafted, and he knew he's going to have a hard time making it on Army pay. So he explained that everybody else on the crew, they got paid $34 for every order they sold instead of $4. So from the time I was 11 till I was 16, I was his top sales guy, which means I got to sit in the front seat of that 57 Chevrolet. And I made really good money doing that. I mean, for back then in 61, 2, 3. But I did the math when Roy told me that. I didn't believe him at first because $34 versus $4. But he told me the name of the competitor, Ed, in town. He said, "Just tell Gary that you met one of his guys on territory, and all their guys get paid $34. But I had to wait 2 weeks until Roy left town because Gary did make threats to the crews and people if anyone ever told me. So I waited 2 weeks right after Roy left. I went to Gary and said, I met this guy. He's got a crew, Ed, and they all get paid $34 an order. And so I know if you could afford it, Gary, you would, but I know you probably can't, so I'm going to have to leave. He called me a lot of names at that point, and he offered me $8 an order. I turned it down, and he called me a lot of other names, and I walked out of the office. About a week later, had a birthday, and I was still not working there. He came by the house, and he was dangling keys, and I want to show you something, and walk outside. He had a brand new Bonneville convertible, cranberry leather interior, pure white, and called me a bunch of more names about how ingrate I was, and how he had saved the money. Now back then you could buy like a brand new Mustang for $1,995 right out of the showroom. It cost you a little more for that Bonneville, that Bonneville, but I would imagine that would have ran almost $3,000. I did the math on how many sales I had because I kept records, and the difference from $34 and $30 is, well, it came to $192,000 that he didn't pay me. But you know what? He never cheated me. He never lied to me on that. Other things maybe, but
Know that.
And I never ever felt that he cheated me out of that $192,000. He paid me exactly what he said he was going to pay me, $4 an order. The fact that I was dumb and 11, that I don't think it's something everybody should do in business like him. But that difference was huge. And as a matter of fact, I've given talks around the country and around the world, actually, in London, Rome, Canada, Paris, Spain, Mexico, and throughout the United States, where people requested the $192,000 lesson, because to me, it was a lesson. If I would have gotten the same amount of money as the college kids, would I have done as well? Probably not. I was 11. I'd be spending it on bubble gum, and instead, I always wanted a bike. I never had a bike as a kid. I bought my first bike when I turned 65. But when I was going door to door, and that's something, if you haven't experienced it, it's that you could write a book on.
Yeah. And Bob, you sold yourself a little short, I think, because I know that not only did you end up as a very young teenager, even before maybe making more than your father was making, but I think in the end you were making more than the principal of your school.
That's true. They had a program, and they might still have it today, where if you wanted to get out of school and work, like go to McDonald's, get your $1.25 an hour, you get to leave school at noon and get full credit for your day at school.
Sure.
I wanted to do that. I didn't have to go to work until 5 o'clock, but, I thought that would be so great, because, again, 11, 12, 13. I waited until I was 16 before I asked to be able to do that work program. My counselor denied me because that's not a real profession, selling door to door. And I won't disagree with him, but it did okay for me. It was also just a cut out, no, you're no good if that's what you're doing to get in that. So I went to my vice principal and thought I could maybe override my counselor. He denied it also. I went to the principal, trying to follow all the proper chain of command, and the principal was pretty short-nosed that I've been to the other two, and said, look, it's all about education, which I thought was funny since that's what we preach today. And he said, and it happened to be tax time, he reached into his desk and he took out his W-2 and he put it on the table and said, that is what an education will get you, education. Tax time, I had my 1099. I looked at his. That's what a part-time job after school will get you. And I have a company car. He then approved me to go on the work program. I declined it and said,
I need an education.
Yeah, I mean, again, I really didn't need to get off, and I did get to skip a year in school, so I graduated early, and that's why I was able to go into the Army.
So I happen to know that you went on to be head of sales for various entities and a go-to sought-after person to consult on sales and help sales teams. But tell me what other lessons, though, you learned. Because I think you're right. I think if you'd been paid the whole $192,000, things might have turned out differently. But how did that impact your life going forward? And just not sales, but life as well.
You know, I think the experience that I had working for Gary, it taught me a lot more than just, again, people should do what they say. He did. I'm not going to hold that against him. But it also taught me a lot about the things that I didn't want to be when I grew up.
Sure.
Gary was an alcoholic, and he was not a fun alcoholic, pretty mean, and he was nice before then. Most of the guys that work there, even the college kids, were going in that direction where it was, when I was like 12, I remember one of the guys OD'd on heroin, and I'm helping them throw ice, I don't know why, into a bathtub in Gary's private bathtub room. But they were all drinkers. When we traveled on the road, at Motel 3, the guys would always go out at night because in North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, place you could drink at 18, not at 12 or 13. So I was stuck back at the motel, and they would all go out. And you grow up and say, I didn't want to be like that either. So never been much of a drinker. I like having a nice drink with dinner or so sometimes. That, drugs, things like that. I learned a lot of that from that group of people, which I think, again, was a great lesson for me.
So Bob, circling back to kind of the real estate industry and HMS's end, we're in a time right now, you mentioned higher prices, higher interest rates. What do you tell people that are concerned that they might not be able to get into a home in this environment? Do you have advice for those people?
In a worst case scenario, Jeremy, where people truly, it's not right yet for them to do it because it would be too expensive and we don't want to put people in debt. But whenever it's possible for them to own versus renting, because they're going to pay the landlord. And we tell them, you just got to stop making the landlord richer because that's all you're doing. You're losing tax credits. You're losing equity, which is most important. But when folks come in, sometimes it's counseling, maybe for 6 months on here's what you can do if it's a credit issue. You need to pay down these credit cards to this amount. And we have a computer that calculates that for them and tells them how low it needs to get paid down to be able to qualify. You're also not paying that 21% interest, and up. So again, education. If there are people sometimes, and there are, that probably never should, maybe because they just haven't matured to that point. They're going to spend every dime that they get instead of saving it or building it, and you don't want them to end up with a foreclosure. So we let them know the way that they can do it, whether it's credit, income, debt ratio. Sometimes it's like get a better job or get a part-time job to start saving money to get rid of all the debt. A part-time job will not help you if you just get it and then want to go buy a house, because they're thinking, underwriters, no, you're just doing that to get more income to buy your house. You'll quit soon after. So understanding how credit works is huge. We've helped thousands of people. I mean, literally, in DFW, we've helped over 20,000 folks get into their new home. And as time passed, it morphed a little bit into a little something different. Now we get people buying $1 million homes too, not just that apartment dweller. And it doesn't matter if it's a starter home for people, or a starter home today, what I would consider a starter home, a nice 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths, 2-car garage, fenced yard, nicely built. Something like that is going to cost maybe $350, $400. And you also have, like, we sold one over the weekend. It was north of $2 million. Took 3 days to sell it. And we had 6 solid offers on it, all of them $100,000 or more over asking price. So there is a market out there. And for people that are trying to sell a house or whatever, we are pretty good at that too. So you have to be flexible with the market. Right now, I think the market's going to be really good down the line. I've got a lot of courage in seeing the market turning around a bit now with the new administration. We already see that happening. And the phone is starting to ring a little bit more, and people can find us, go to our website, like blessyourheart.com. Blessyourheart.com. Literally, you can go on that and see the kind of houses we do and tell the story. Or you can call our office, 972-392-9595. For a second, I thought I was bobbing and weaving like Gavin Newsom there.
No.
I didn't want to do that, yeah. So I'll put my hand down.
But, Bob, I think a couple things also people need to know, right, is that not only you're providing education free, but your clients aren't paying you in the end, right?
No. One thing, again, that we get asked all the time when people call to schedule an appointment to come in and meet with us, what's the cost or fee? There is no cost or fee for that. Again, this is educational. What we hope is that if someone is ready to eventually buy their house and they like the way HMS does things, they will come back and use us to do that. But there is no obligation to. And we even give them a free copy of a tri-merged credit report, which is the best, most comprehensive you can get. All 3 bureaus merged into one. And we let them take them with it. So, I mean, they have it so people don't have to pull their credit all the time. For the most part, I think when I say the 20,000 or so that we've helped over the years, that means they are not renting. They are owning their own place. And we're pretty proud of that. We have slogans like get out of the rent race, stop making the landlord richer and all that, but and bless your heart, which we've ran a lot of commercials on TV over the years with that. But people in Dallas pretty much know in the DFW area who we are. We did not run a lot of commercials last year. Maybe we will do more this year, but people need a break. They know we're there. Pick up the phone, call us, or email.
Yeah.
blessyourheart.com.
The other thing I think you help folks with, I think you work with some builders that fortunately are willing to help out as well with various incentives and buying down interest rates and other things like that.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily, fortunately, that we work with these builders to do that, because builders are greedy. I mean, I work with builders, and I love the builders that we have as preferreds. But as a just natural instinct, a lot of builders, they're greedy. And we've got builders that we call preferred builders. They do things for us that no one else will do. We get them to buy down interest rates many, many times. We get them to pay closing costs. we get them to throw in a lot of extra goodies, especially for our military and veterans and police officers and teachers. And we do some things for nurses. So they do it not because they love me and think Bob Lovell is a nice guy. They do it because over the years we've given them $100 million a year of business. And they do it because they're greedy. And if they want to keep getting that, they're going to have to do things for our clients
Sure.
that they don't do for anyone else.
Well, Bob, is there anything that but we haven't asked you that you would like people to know about HMS or yourself?
I think the one thing that has probably hit me more than anything in the last 30 years of doing this is the hardest part for the folks that we talk to, and truly, no exaggeration, the hardest part is picking up the phone and making that call, because they're either afraid, they don't, know how to go about it, or they're concerned. And it's that fear factor.
Sure.
When they do that, they find then when they come into the office, we're real family oriented. They bring the kids, and we just want to make sure that they really truly get all the education they need to make the right decision, whether it's buying a home or waiting for a while until you do things, or to get it correctly. We have a program, it's called HBP, Home Buyers Program, and it's designed for people that have less than perfect credit. And we actually put them in this program, and we improve their credit and show them how to do it, because they don't understand the credit bureau is not necessarily your friend. The friend of the credit bureau is the people trying to collect money. And so understanding the rules of what you should pay down and what counts and what's important, we educate them with even all of that. And I would say in the beginning especially, probably 75% of everybody that ended up buying a home from us went through that program, and we keep their feet to the fire. This is what you have to do if you want to do it. If you don't, we'll just drop you, because you're wasting time.
Sure. Jeremy, any other questions for Bob?
No, I don't think so, Bob. It's been a pleasure having you on. We've really interesting talk. We've really enjoyed it.
Well, I really enjoyed it, and it's good to have a format that you can just speak freely about, what you do. I get interviewed once in a while, and it's like they want to stick to whatever.
Sure.
But it was nice with you guys. You could just say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, no.
Freedom of speech.
There we go.
We like it that way.
It's a free forum here.
Nice and casual.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Thank you for joining us today, Bob.